In the wake of the horrific attacks in Paris over the weekend, there's been more and more discussion of guns, gun control, and gun safety regulation. And there's now a new report from the Government Accountability Office, which says that over 2,000 known and suspected terrorists in the United States have legally purchased firearms between 2004 and 2014, according to the Washington Post. As they say, and we'll take a look at a quote from the Washington Post, membership in a terrorist organization does not prohibit a person from possessing firearms or explosives under current federal law. The Government Accountability Office concluded in 2010. The law prohibits felons, fugitives, drug addicts, and domestic abusers from purchasing a firearm in the United States, but people on the FBI's Consolidated Terror Watch List, typically placed there when there is reasonable suspicion that they are a known or suspected terrorist, can freely purchase handguns or assault-style rifles. Okay, but how many attempts were made by individuals on this list? Well, at least 2,233 attempts were made by suspected terrorists to purchase firearms over that 10-year period. And those attempts, Lewis, were successful 91% of the time. Not very effective, is it?
That's pretty incredible. No, not effective, Dave. I don't like hearing that. It's not really surprising, though, is it?
No, it's not. And even these numbers are incomplete because of a programming error that the FBI subsequently fixed, according to the GAO. So there was a bipartisan bill offered this year. It was unsubtly described as Denying Firearms and Explosives to Dangerous Terrorists Act of 2015. It would prevent several hundred gun purchases every year by suspected terrorists, and it includes provisions to let people challenge a denial. So if you're worried about, oh, the hammer of the government fist is coming down on me and I'm not a terrorist, well, it has a provision to challenge that. The NRA doesn't like it. Let's take a look at a quote from the NRA. The NRA objected to earlier versions of the bill, saying they were aimed primarily at law-abiding citizens, law-abiding American gun owners, that prohibiting the possession of firearms doesn't stop criminals from illegally acquiring them, and that the bills were, quote, sponsored by gun control extremists. Because an armed society, something, freedom and liberty, right? I mean, that's really the reason why we see groups like the NRA oppose this type of legislation.
Well, you have people in the NRA and people who support the NRA who think it is a freedom issue, but the NRA is just trying to sell more guns because that's the goal here. It's business. It's money. Like everything, it's money.
And it's interesting because we don't allow felons from owning. We don't allow felons to own guns, but we allow people suspected of terrorism links to be purchasing guns. And you have to remember, and I understand, if you're suspected of terrorism, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a terrorist. I mean, at one point, former Senator, the late, great Ted Kennedy, was on one of these no-fly lists accidentally, so errors are made. But there is this total incongruency that exists, and the pro-gun groups like the NRA are just totally unhinged about it. Over 2,000 terrorists able to suspected terrorists, legally purchase guns over a 10-year period.